I think it'd be fair to say it was another disappointing day for the Quebec Liberal Party today in the National Assembly. We'll talk about that in just a sec. ANDRÉ FORTIN, the opposition House Leader, he's also the Liberal MNA for Pontiac, is on the line. First of all, ANDRÉ, let me say thanks for being here. This is, I guess, not an easy day to have to be there to explain what's going on, so thanks for making the time. We appreciate it.
I'm happy to be there.
Let's talk about, first off, what happened today. This, I don't want to call it a boneheaded move, but I think that's how it's being referred to, this amendment to the amendment of courses by English students in French CEGEPs. You went from 3 core courses, the original decision that no one understood, to now suggesting it just be 5 language courses, took the 3 courses off the board, and that got voted down. I think a lot of people are wondering where this idea came from.
So this amendment is actually an amendment that it's an attempt at a way out of this situation, which would affect the R score and the student success. If we leave the bill the way it is now, and we've heard this from the community, we've heard it from CEGEP directors, it will have an impact on people's R score. It'll have an impact on certain students' ability to succeed in their classes. So there has to be a way out here. And the way out, which isn't the best solution, isn't the one that we would have proposed, but it's the one that we thought could have come to compromise here, was to say, well, if you can't succeed in those 3 classes in French, you could take 3 classes, 3 French classes, French second language classes.
We're trying to understand what's going on. You're suggesting that this was Simon Jolin Barrett's idea, that you thought by saying 5 courses, not in your core, but 5 language courses, you would get the CAQ to go along with this?
Well, this was our understanding, and like I said, it wasn't our initial solution. It wasn't what we would have proposed, but it was what we understood that everybody could agree to, and we honestly thought that Simon Jolin Barrett would go along with this, and it wouldn't have an impact on the R score. It wouldn't have an impact on student success. So it wasn't the best solution.
You got set up. It sounds like, right?
But at the end of the day, if this is a solution that would make sure that students can succeed, I can't understand for the life of me why a government that has that solution in hand wouldn't want to apply it and to safeguard student success here.
Well, because it makes you look bad.
He had that opportunity today, and he chose not to do it.
Well, why would he do it? You'd already, first of all, the last idea that you put forth, which would have taken, English students, forcing them to take 3 core classes, that was like winning the lotto for the CAQ. That wasn't even in their original amendment to the bill. You offered that up. What would make you think that they would take anything else? Yeah,
there comes a point, though, where you do have to see, okay, is that solution, is that amendment, is that bill applicable? And in this case, it's not. And you have to put political points aside and look at policy, look at what's best for Quebecers, what's best for students. And this happens in committee. This happens during committee studies where people will propose something, people will realize it's not workable, it doesn't work, and then everybody will get together and do the right thing. And that's what we're asking, that's what we asked today, Simon Jolin Barrett to do. Mm-hmm. That's what we asked the government to do. And they chose maybe just to drag this out. Maybe they will, in time, when the bill is at the very last stage, agree to a solution, but they're choosing to drag it out and to leave the community worried about what's happening instead of reassuring everybody and saying, let's do the right thing to ensure student success here.
I mean, I don't understand why we would expect them to do the right thing when they have never chosen to do so. But nonetheless,
that's absolutely fair.
But Mr. Fortin, it's kind of a brilliant move in so much that this is what we're talking about now and how it reflects badly on the Liberals somehow. Instead of talking about the Heron scandal, instead of talking about the healthcare sector, 500 people signing a letter saying Bill 96 puts their jobs, what they do in jeopardy, and people's level of care in jeopardy. So it's kind of brilliant, don't you think?
You mean the shifting of the focus?
Yeah.
If he wants to drag out this situation, fair enough, that's his prerogative. But at the same time, he is worrying students, he is worrying parents for no reason whatsoever when there is a solution. And my understanding is that his own ministry brought this solution to the colleges, and they said, well, this is better than what we have, so let's take this because it does fix the issue of the R score and the student success.
Problem is, it doesn't do anything do anything to appease Anglo students, and we know he could care less about them, so maybe that's why this is actually going the way it is. Look, I don't want to run out of time with you. I want to ask you about what Natasha just brought up, this open letter. Okay. We had Dick Menzies, one of the signatories to it, on the air yesterday. 500 people, not 500 people, 30 organizations saying, hey, what's in Bill 96 as it stands now will not only be not good, but dangerous for the medical community. Where was the Liberal health critic on this, and how did this just come up in an open letter and not in the National Assembly? How are we only finding out about it now?
Well, there is a lot of issues with Bill 96, right? There's the issue. There are issues of access to justice. There's issues of access to healthcare. There's issues of access for newcomers to Quebec. And my understanding from reading the letter today is that it does have what it brings out is if you are coming to Quebec, if you're an immigrant, you only get service in English or any other language for 6 months. Right. After that, you get your government services in French. My understanding of the bill, and from the amendment that David Birnbaum put forward, is that healthcare is excluded from the bill. However, that part of it, the part that says a newcomer to Quebec only has access to services for 6 months, is a part that was debated at length. It's a part that we opposed vehemently, and it stands today because the CAQ government has a majority. But that is something the government brought on, and it will have. It may not have access on healthcare, but it'll have access on a number of government services. And that is unfortunate because learning a language when you come to a new country or new province can take a lot longer than 6 months.
I want to go back to what you just said, though. You said in reading the open letter, as if you just discovered this. We found out about this because of the open letter. Did no one in the Liberal Party know that this was part of Bill 96 up until someone read that letter?
No, everybody knew. Everybody understands that 6 months is what a newcomer has, and it was debated at length. Now, whether it's an issue that applies to healthcare, I'm not certain. I don't think so because healthcare is from the amendment from the Liberal amendment that was presented excluded from Bill 96. So you should have, as an Anglophone, as a newcomer, as somebody as a Quebecer, even if I wanted to get healthcare services in English because I'm more comfortable in that language, I could have access to it. That's the understanding we have of the bill now. Now, for newcomers, though, they do have an issue with that 6 month period on a host of government services.
Okay, so you're presuming that there's an exception here for within the healthcare system, but we don't know that for a fact. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I believe it is a fact, but it's certainly, if there are people in the community, and obviously there are from the people who wrote that letter who are worried about it, it does need to be clarified. But limiting access to newcomers after 6 months is one of the main points of Bill 96, and it is one of the main sticking points of Bill 96 also.
Are we stuck with, I feel like we're stuck with Bill 96. What happens next?
Well, Bill 96, like I said, is a problem for a host of reasons, and it'll have an impact on our college education, and not just for the question of the 3 courses. It'll have a long-term impact on the enrollment. As you know, it's limited to the current today amounts. I live in a region where we're growing tremendously, and our English-speaking population is growing tremendously. So we can't live with today's numbers at our English-speaking CEGEP. It has issues with access to justice. It has a whole host of issues that, will have to be. If the CAQ is willing to pass them today, and that's what their government wants, they will have to be looked at very carefully to see down the road if they have and we believe it will have an inordinate amount of impact on the community.
So you're talking about by virtue of the fact that the notwithstanding clause is part of this. I mean, even if they do decide to pass this before the election or implement it after the election, it's not going to be challenged. It can't be challenged. What happens then? Does the federal government have to get involved at that point?
I think people will still try, to be honest with you. I'm sure people will still try the same way that people are taking Bill 21 to court, even though it does have, part of it is protected by the notwithstanding clause. I'm convinced that people will give it a fair shot because it affects rights and services. And the CAQ government is protecting itself by using the notwithstanding clause. Whether that holds up in court, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell for sure, but I would be shocked if nobody thought of taking to court many of the dispositions in Bill 96.
ANDRÉ, we are out of time. As I said, I want to thank you. Look, I will have to ask the question. David Birnbaum is walking away, so a third of your Liberal ministers are not going to run again. Are you planning to run again come October?
I am planning to run again. If the people of Pontiac want to have me around for a few more years, it'd be my pleasure to serve them. And I do understand a lot of my colleagues are stepping down, but it's also an opportunity for renewal for our party and to have new new people with new ideas, new ways of doing things, and hopefully people will trust us to going forward.
André, as always, appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Right. Have a great day.
You too. André Fortin, Liberal Party M&A and Opposition House Leader.
What a mess.
Trying to answer the questions as best he can. It is a mess, no question.